So I've seen some other creators on this app talking about the books of their childhood that they hold dear. And for me, I'm going to talk about my Cornerstone books. It's what I would call the books that made me the reader and the person that I am today. These are all books that hold some sort of significance outside of just the plot and structure of the book itself to me. So we'll get into that. First, though, please drop in the comments your favorite book from your life or one that was important to you growing up that made you the person you are today. Share this video, tag a friend in it, and let's get into it. First up is Aragon. This book is fundamental to my life experience. And it's more than just as a reader. This book did ignite my love of fantasy and made me realize that there was a place in fantasy for stories other than Lord of the Rings, basically, which was my exposure at the time. Paolini was 15 when he wrote this book. I was 10 when I read it in 2003. So this book taught me that youth is not always a disadvantage and that young people have a place in industry and art and creativity, and they have a voice and they can demand to be heard. And this was the first time I had seen that really from someone that was around my own age. So that was awesome. It inspired me to want to read more, to want to write, create stories. And eventually, I ended up getting a degree in English in writing. So really, I owe a lot to Aragon and to Christopher Paolini. This book really changed my life, so to speak. Of it, it feels silly to say so, but it did. This is still my original copy too. You can see this thing is really beat up. It's just absolutely wrecked. But I love it. I would never consider giving this up in a million years. The second book that I would consider formative to myself as a reader is actually more of a series, and it's one that I can't even really recommend that you buy, and that is The Bulgariad and The Malorian by David Eddings. And my relationship with these books is pretty complicated now, but I can look back and say these books were the first time that I read a series like this. 10 books, and I powered through them. I went through them so fast. I bought these compendium editions that were out at the time, I think from Barnes & Noble, that had like the whole series in 4 editions, basically omnibus editions, and I just absolutely crushed them. And I remember at the time I couldn't find the copies of the books in my hometown. It's a pretty small town. In the library, they didn't have them, so I had to go and find these books. And it was the first time I remember ordering a book online. It was a whole thing. So um, these books were formative to me. However, I cannot recommend people buy them simply because of things that have come out about the author posthumously. And you can look him up. I'm not going to get into it here. David Eddings had a lot of skeletons in his closet and things that he did that I find abhorrent. And especially as an adoptive father, I can't own his books anymore. I donated them, but I can't deny what they meant to me as a kid, and that doesn't change just because my context and understanding of the author changed. Next book is the first nonfiction book on this list, and I believe maybe the first nonfiction book I ever read voluntarily, and that is A Walk in the Woods by Bill Bryson. This book I bought at a Kroger checkout line for like $2, and it just caught my eye because it had a bear on the cover, and I read it. I was blown away. I am from an area of Kentucky that's very close to Appalachia. I would say Appalachia adjacent. My wife's family is from Appalachia. It is not an area that I am unfamiliar with, but it is an area that I discovered I do very little about, and Bill Bryson educated me. That book is hilarious. It is brilliant. It is beautifully written, and it's educational. And I cannot recommend it enough. It is ultimately a hiking book. It's chronicling Bryson's hike of the Appalachian Trail from beginning to end, which is a fascinating feat in and of itself. But along the way, he meets these fascinating people and he has these crazy experiences. His observation of the whole thing is hilarious and has this cutting humor that's just fantastic. Cannot recommend this book enough. The next book on this list is going to be The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. You might be thinking, why not Fellowship of the Ring? Well, because I didn't read Fellowship first. I watched the movie, and then I read The Two Towers for a book report in, I think, 5th grade. So this was actually my first Tolkien that I read cover to cover, and it is fantastic. I'll still argue it's a better book than Fellowship, and I still have my original copy here, which is the movie tie-in edition that my childhood dog took a bite out of. So I have to keep that. But Two Towers is a fantastic book. I'm not going to tell you anything you don't already know about it, most likely, but if you haven't read it, read it. Watch the movie, read the book. Excellent storytelling. And I feel like stronger than Fellowship. And the last book on this list is not one that I still have my physical copy of, unfortunately. But that is The Fall of Reach by Eric Nyland. It is actually a Halo 1 tie-in novel. But also brilliant sci-fi from an underrated author. Eric Nyland has written a number of these tie-in books. He's also written several of his own books, which I will put the titles of right here. And I can't recommend them enough. If you like Halo, this book is no longer canon, but in my opinion, it's superior to the current canon, although I do love Reach as well. But this was the first time that I saw my love of gaming and science fiction married with my love of reading and fantasy, and seeing that those two things could exist in the same space and not compete for time, they could cooperate together and tell an incredible story together, blew my mind. I will never diss tie-in novels. I think they are awesome. They add something to the story they're tying into. And Star Wars canon is like 90% tie-in novels at this point. So, yeah, if you like a movie or a TV show, see if there's a tie-in novel or a game. Go see if there's a book. Read it. I mean, look at Warhammer. Warhammer is a tabletop game. Now it's a TV show, and it's also a series of extremely highly regarded science fiction novels. So, I will never diss tie-in novels. I think they're fantastic, and this is the first one that showed me how good they can be. So yeah, those are my Cornerstone reads. Those are books that were very important to me at the time that I read them. I will accept no criticism on them, even though I know they are not perfect by any stretch. But yeah, I would love to hear your all's. Please share this video, tag your friends in it, and tell me what your Cornerstone books are. What made you the reader you are now, and what books do you view as critical to your life?